Once in a small colorful village tucked between tall mountains and lush green fields, lived a young woman named Amara. Amara had a voice like honey, warm and soothing. Every morning as the sun spread its first light over the fields, she would sing, her voice drifting over the rooftops and down to the river. People would stop what they were doing just to listen, enchanted by her melodies that seemed to carry 1,000 emotions all at once: joy, sadness, love, and loss. In her village, Amara was a star. The elders blessed her, the children followed her, and the entire village felt proud to know her. But Amara didn't feel content. While everyone around her believed she was living a blessed life, Amara dreamed of something bigger. She didn't want to just sing for the same faces every day. She wanted to sing for the world. She longed for bright lights, big stages, and crowds that cheered her name. Amara often shared her dreams with her best friend, Nia. One day, Nia, people from every village, every city, even beyond the mountains, will know who I am. They'll come just to hear me sing, she'd say, her eyes sparkling with excitement. But Nia would shake her head, smiling gently. Amara, fame and fortune don't always bring happiness. Isn't it enough to be loved here in our village? But Amara couldn't see it that way. She was convinced there was a grand destiny waiting for her, one that couldn't be fulfilled by staying in her village. She saw herself as a bird trapped in a cage, longing to spread her wings and fly toward a life filled with adventure, admiration, and fame. Yet deep down there was a small voice of doubt. Would the world beyond her village truly give her the happiness she craved? Or would she have to sacrifice everything she held dear to get it? Ignoring that doubt, she held tightly to her dreams, unaware of the price that ambition might demand. One bright morning, as Amara sang by the river, a group of traders arrived in the village. They were strangers dressed in fine clothes, carrying goods from far-off lands and speaking of cities Amara had only heard about in stories. As villagers gathered to trade and listen to the travelers' tales, Amara was drawn to an older man among them, a musician named Kofi, who carried a drum intricately decorated with beads and colorful cloth. Kofi had a way of capturing people's attention just like Amara. His stories painted pictures of bustling cities, grand stages, and people whose voices were celebrated across the land. He spoke of singers who rose to fame in the great city, where crowds cheered and musicians became legends. Amara's heart raced as she listened. This was exactly what she had dreamed of. The city Kofi described was full of the lights and applause she had always imagined, a place where she could finally be recognized, not just as the village girl who sang by the river, but as a true star. After his performance, Amara approached Kofi, her eyes wide with excitement. "Sir," she asked, her voice barely containing her eagerness, "do you think someone like me, someone from a small village, could become a famous singer in the great city?" Kofi looked at her thoughtfully. "You have the heart of a dreamer, child. But remember, fame is like a fire. It shines brightly but needs constant feeding. You might have to leave behind everything you know to keep it alive." Amara brushed off his words, her mind already racing with possibilities. Here was her chance. She asked if Kofi could take her to the city. He hesitated, warning her again. "The city isn't what it seems, young one. It can make you feel larger than life, but it can also take things from you that you may never get back." But Amara was determined. She knew this was her one shot to escape the ordinary and become something extraordinary. She was ready to pay any price to make her dreams come true. That night, she packed her few belongings and left a note for her family, explaining her choice. Under the light of the moon, Amara joined the traders and set off on her journey. With each step, her heart beat with excitement and fear. As she left behind her village, her family, and the life she had known, chasing the dream she had held onto for so long. The city was more dazzling than anything Amara had ever imagined. Everywhere she looked, There were bustling crowds, towering buildings, and lights that glimmered even at night. She could hardly believe she was actually here. Her dreams seemed so close she could almost reach out and touch them. Kofi helped her get started, introducing her to musicians and performers who frequented the lively markets and bustling taverns. She began performing in small gatherings, where her voice quickly caught the attention of anyone within earshot. People whispered about her. A young woman with a voice so beautiful that even the busiest merchants would pause to listen. Soon her performances became the highlight of the city's night scene, with more people attending each time. It didn't take long for a manager to notice her. A stern, ambitious woman named Zuri, who promised to make Amara a true star. Zuri had the connections, the know-how, and a strict plan for success. Under her guidance, Amara's life changed almost overnight. She was performing at bigger events, meeting wealthy patrons, and even singing for city nobles. Posters with her face appeared on every street corner, and the crowds grew larger with each performance. But with all this new attention came new demands. Zuri kept Amara's schedule packed, insisting that she had to keep up with the city's endless thirst for entertainment. People here are quick to forget, Amara. You have to stay visible, or they'll move on to someone else, Zuri would remind her, keeping her on a relentless schedule of rehearsals, performances, and appearances. Amara barely had time to rest, let alone write home or think about her family. Her once clear voice started to show signs of strain, but Zuri brushed it off, pushing her to work even harder. Letters from her family and friends piled up unread. Every time she thought of going back, the fear of losing her hard-earned fame held her back. As the years passed, the weight of the city's demands started to wear on her. She was no longer the carefree girl who had sung by the river just for the joy of it. Now singing felt like a job she couldn't afford to lose. She was trapped in a cycle of constant performances, late-night events, and people she barely knew praising her one moment and moving on the next. One day, as she was walking through the market, Amara spotted a familiar face in the crowd, Nia, her childhood friend, who had come to the city to find her. Nia waved, her face lighting up with joy. But Amara, surrounded by her entourage and fans, pretended not to see her. She turned away, telling herself that Nia was a part of her old life, a life she could no longer afford to look back on. But deep down, a pang of regret lingered, a small reminder of the person she had once been. The applause that used to fill her with joy now felt hollow, the praise empty. She had traded her family, her friends, and her happiness for the constant demands of fame, but she was starting to wonder if it was all worth it. Still, she kept going, clinging to the only life she knew, afraid that if she stopped, even for a moment, it would all slip away. Years passed, and Amara remained one of the city's most sought-after performers. But the spark that had once ignited her songs had dimmed. Each performance felt emptier than the last. Her voice, once full of emotion, was now hollow, echoing the emptiness she felt inside. The fame she had chased so eagerly now felt like a weight around her neck, one that she couldn't shake off no matter how hard she tried. One evening, after a particularly exhausting performance, Amara sat alone in her lavish, lonely room. Surrounded by fine fabrics, jewelry, and decorations from all over the world, she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt true happiness. She tried to sing, just as she had back in the village by the river, but the words caught in her throat. It was as if the joy in her voice had been drained, leaving only the shell of the girl she once was. As she sat there, a familiar face appeared in the doorway. It was Kofi, the same old musician who had first brought her to the city. Time had weathered him even more, but his eyes still held that same gentle wisdom. He looked at her with a mix of pity and understanding, sensing the sorrow that had settled in her heart. "Amara," he said softly, his voice kind, You look as though the weight of the world is on your shoulders. Why do you stay, when it's clear this life has stolen your happiness?" Amara fought back tears. "I thought this was everything I wanted," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I thought fame would fill the emptiness inside me. But now I feel lonelier than ever. I miss my family, my village. I even miss singing by the river, where my voice felt free." Kofi nodded, his expression serious. "Fame, child, is like a river that never rests. It may carry you to great heights, but it can also pull you under, taking everything you love with it. Go home, Amara. Find the happiness you've lost." His words lingered in her mind long after he left. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. Memories of her village, her family, and her friends flooded back. Moments she had buried deep within her heart. She remembered Nia's face, full of joy and loyalty, and how she had turned her back on her friend in the marketplace. The weight of her choices pressed down on her, filling her with regret and a longing for the life she'd left behind. Finally, as dawn approached, Amara made a decision. She would return home, even if it meant leaving behind her fame and the life she had worked so hard to build. She packed her belongings, each piece a reminder of the price she had paid for her ambition. With every item she put away, she felt a sense of relief, as though she was shedding layers of herself that no longer fit. For the first time in years, she felt free. When her manager, Zuri, heard of her decision, she was furious. "Are you really willing to throw away everything for a life that you left behind? People would give anything to be in your place, Amara. Don't be foolish." But Amara stood firm. "I may have been famous here, Zuri, but I was never happy. I'd rather be unknown and loved than celebrated and empty." Without looking back, Amara left the city. The journey home felt long and unfamiliar. But with every step, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. She was no longer the girl chasing dreams of fame. She was a woman seeking the warmth of family, the joy of simple songs, and the love she had almost lost forever. When Amara finally arrived back in her village, she felt as if she was stepping into a dream. The familiar sights, the gentle rustling of the trees, and the sound of the river in the distance brought tears to her eyes. She had come full circle, returning to the place where her heart had truly belonged all along. As she walked through the village, people began to recognize her. Some looked surprised, others hesitant, unsure if this was the same Amara who had left them all those years ago. But when she saw her family's humble home, her steps quickened, her heart pounding with both excitement and fear. Her mother was the first to see her. There was a moment of silence as they locked eyes, and then, without a word, her mother rushed to embrace her. The warmth of her mother's arms, the scent of home. These were things no amount of fame could replace. Soon her father joined, followed by her siblings, all surrounding her with love and acceptance, as if she had never left. Nia arrived too, standing quietly at a distance. With a pang of guilt, Amara remembered the day she had ignored her friend in the city market. But Nia, with a forgiving smile, walked up and hugged her tightly. No words were needed. Their friendship had survived the years, stronger than ever. As the days passed, Amara found herself singing by the river once more, this time without the need for applause or approval. Her voice was softer, filled with the wisdom and humility she had gained. Villagers gathered again, not just to hear her sing, but to be near her, to share in the joy that her songs brought. In the end, Amara had learned the true meaning of happiness, that it wasn't found in the applause of strangers, but in the love of those closest to her. She had chased her dreams, tasted the bitterness of fame, and returned home with a deeper understanding of what truly mattered. Amara's journey taught her that fame can be a double-edged sword. It can dazzle and distract, making you forget what truly matters: family, friendship, and the simple joys of life. As she continued to sing by the river, her voice became a blend of all her experiences, the dreams she chased and the lessons she learned. The village had welcomed her back with open arms, and she took every opportunity to share her newfound wisdom with the younger generation. She encouraged them to dream big, but reminded them that true happiness doesn't come from the spotlight. Instead, it comes from the love and laughter shared with family and friends. Years later, as she watched the sun set over the horizon, casting golden hues across the river, Amara smiled. She had found her place, not in the bright lights of a distant city, but right there in her village, where her heart was free to sing its true song. In the end, Amara discovered that sometimes the path to fulfillment lies not in the pursuit of fame, but in the connections we cherish and the love we nurture. And as the river flowed steadily by, so did her spirit, content, grounded, and finally at peace. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more incredible African folktales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep these timeless tales alive. Plus, you'll never miss a new adventure or life lesson we share. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.